Well, welcome to Faith, Culture and Politics in Australia with Mark. Before I bring on my guest, who I'm actually really looking forward to have a chat with, I just want to remind everybody to hit that like and subscribe button and share as much as possible, remembering that independent podcasters like myself are heavily censored as well, and we rely on people like yourself that can share our content around and support us as much as possible. So without further ado, I'll introduce our guest and run through a bit of a bio there, and we'll bring him on stage after that. So today, I'm really pleased to bring you Professor Ian Brightope. Professor Brighthope's extraordinary journey began back in 1965 when he graduated in agricultural science and immersed himself in the worlds of plants and animal nutrition. Working with everything from cattle and horses to poultry, he developed a deep respect for scientific rigor through hands-on field research. But it was this foundation in optimal nutrition that sparked a lifelong curiosity, one that would ultimately bridge the gap between farming fields and human. By 1974, after earning his medical degrees from the University of New South Wales and Monash University, Ian set off on a global quest travelling across Europe, North America and Asia, searching for answers to the gaps he saw in conventional medicine. Along the way, he embraced herbal remedies, acupuncture and environmental medicine, seeking a more holistic understanding of how the body heals. When he returned to Australia, he didn't just integrate these ideas, he revolutionised them. In the 1970s, he founded the Brighthope Clinics and Biocentres, Australia's first centres dedicated to nutritional and environmental medicine. These groundbreaking clinics treated everything from cancer and heart disease to chronic fatigue, arthritis, and autoimmune disorders. They pioneered megadose intravenous vitamin C therapy and holistic detoxification long before integrative medicine became a recognised concept, a term Ian himself actually coined in the early 1980s. As founding president of the Australasian College of Nutritional and Environmental Medicine, he launched Australia's first postgraduate medical course in nutrition, edited its journal, and mentored generations of doctors. He went on to co-found the Australasian Integrative Medicine Association and later became a full professor at Swinburne University's Graduate School of Integrative Medicine. Over the decades, Professor Brighthope has authored 5 influential books, including works endorsed by the Nobel laureate Linus Pauling, and has lectured around the world. His research and advocacy have shaped how we understand the power of nutrients, antioxidants, and natural therapies in disease prevention and recovery. During the COVID-19 pandemic, he championed the ZD Zinc campaign, a nutritional protocol to strengthen immune health, reflecting his lifelong commitment to empowering doctors and patients through knowledge and prevention. Today, as Director of Nutritional and Environmental Medicine at National Institute of Integrative Medicine, founder of the World of Wellness International, and spokesperson for the Aligned Council of Australia, Professor Brighthope continues to lead with science, compassion, and courage, always reminding us that true medicine begins with nutrition, nature, and human connection. And just to let you know that bio probably doesn't do him justice either. He's got an extensive career and extensive bio as well, which people can check out, which I'll look to share on Substack once I upload there, and there'll be links to his platforms as well. And Professor Brighthope as well has got his own Substack, which I highly recommend people to check out, Ian Brighthope's Substack, and he writes extensively on that as well. So it's a real pleasure to be able to welcome to the show today Professor Ian Brightope. Thank you so much for your time to join us today.
Thank you, Mark, and I appreciate being invited on, and hello to all of your listeners. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to be talking into a lot of things that's obviously around your lifelong career, health and well-being, and I'm going to be talking a little bit into the context of the elections that are coming up in March here in South Australia, and talking specifically around things that I'd like South Australians to be aware of, and bring your knowledge into that conversation. But obviously the podcast goes to many more places than South Australia, but kind of because I'm putting my hat in the ring for the election as well, we're going to be talking into that there. I guess, Ian, before, just to kick it off, I mean, you've been doing this work for over 5 decades, you know, educating, researching, advocating. You still speak with such energy and purpose. What keeps you motivated at this stage of your life to keep pushing for awareness and change?
I don't know what keeps me motivated, Mark. I really don't. I just feel as though that I've worked in healthcare and medicine for 5 decades, you know, a long time. And it's interesting, it fascinates me. And I'm constantly being asked to speak, constantly being asked for help, directions for the medical profession and doctors. It's a constant part of life, and I guess my work is life and my life is work, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge, because it's been frustrating for the 5 decades that I started this, because what I'm doing, or what I did do, was not part of orthodox medicine. I basically stepped out of orthodox medicine and designed a completely different way of helping and managing patients. Not to say that orthodox medicine should be discarded. It shouldn't. We've got some of the best methods of helping and treating patients with orthodox medicine. But when it comes to making people healthy again, my colleagues are almost absolutely useless. You cannot make somebody healthy by cutting and burning and poisoning them with, you know, chemotherapy and radiotherapy and surgery, etc. And we overuse medications enormously in this country. So I have that challenge, that frustration, the anxiety that goes with not seeing changes occurring. It sometimes creates mood changes in me, and I get not depressed, but very unhappy about the way things are, and the way things should be and could be, and the resistance that's coming from people, from government, from orthodoxy, from institutions, from global authorities. The resistance to make change for the better is extremely concerning to me and frustrating. So what motivates me? I think it's basically to try to achieve what I set out to do, and I don't think I'm ever going to do it. I'm not going to see the end result at the end of my life, but I do want to see, you know, positive changes. Otherwise, we as a globe and a race are going to continue to suffer, and not only poor health, but suffering from a lack of spiritual awareness, a lack of freedoms, a lack of peace. I think peace and health have to be achieved, and one without the other is impossible. So, yeah, look, it's about human endeavour and a challenge. I couldn't go and on the bowling green and play bowls, or go to the races and bet on the races. I don't go to the pub. I mean, those things don't interest me. And you talk about my CV, Mark. It may look long to you, but compared to some of my academic friends who don't really do much in this world but write papers, it's a very small. Very small.
Just shows your humility, though, Ian, I reckon. Just shows your humility. Look, and you know, your passion just shines through. I've watched you on other podcasts and seen doing this. I mean, I've woken up a lot over the COVID period, and as many people have, and that's, you know, why we're having these sort of conversations, because there was a lot that was done wrong through that period, and there's a lot of lessons that we need to learn out of that. But how, and as you know, the health and wellness space can be pretty crowded these days, from high credible practitioners, like you said, those offering advice that some might call fringe or even quackery. I mean, this is, you know, you've done extensive work. You spent your career bringing science and integrity to integrative medicine, often against the tide of skepticism, which we've seen out there. How do you strike the balance between staying open to innovation and ensuring that what's shared with the public is truly evidence-based and responsible?
Well, what I look at, Mark, is what is the basis of science. Looking at the fundamental sciences, I mean, mathematics, chemistry, physics, they all come into it. The biological sciences are dependent on those 3 modalities. And when one looks at nature, one has to be observant, and have a feeling and compassion for nature and individuals. And we always talk about the science and art of medicine. And what's happened is neither exist anymore in a lot of modern medicine. It's basically a technocratic or technological advances have taken over. And this is what concerns me, that people say that the current information systems with regard to the science of medicine are true and can't be argued. But that's not what science is all about. Science is about continuing to develop and continuing to ask questions, continuing to innovate, and continuing to look for new solutions to old problems. And I think when I decide to promote something, for example, when I started giving high doses of intravenous vitamin C, I had learnt about vitamin C being very important to prevent scurvy. That was at medical school. I might add that we only did 4 years of nutrition in a 6-year medical course. So it was a bit of a waste of time in terms of learning about nutrition at medical school, but it was something that I learned a lot about during my egg science career. So going back to the fundamentals, I looked at vitamin C, preventing scurvy. How did it work? And this is going back a long, long time. Who was using it? How was it being used? What it was being used for? And there were claims that it could actually, by Linus Pauling, the famous Nobel laureate, that vitamin C could prevent and treat the common cold. But it wasn't 100 milligrams per day, which is the RDA, or roughly the RDA, to prevent scurvy. It was, in terms of preventing and treating the common cold, was using hundreds of milligrams or thousands of milligrams, which takes it into the gram dosage form. And as a result of that, he made these claims and published his book and found it was very useful. Other colleagues of mine were using it by injection to treat and prevent serious viral infections. They weren't getting that much success, but it was far better than when you just let the patient get sicker and sicker and possibly die. And that was happening with our Aboriginal children who were being vaccinated and dying from the vaccines. And Dr. Archie Kalakrinos came back and started using injectable vitamin C and helping to save these babies' lives. So for me to advance this, I needed to look at the mechanisms of action of ascorbic acid or vitamin C. And way back in the 1970s, 1980s, we knew many of the mechanisms of action. We knew about the chemistry of the molecule. We knew that adult humans and adult apes, the guinea pig, and a couple of other species could not make vitamin C from glucose, blood sugar. So there was a deficiency in our species that needed to be corrected, and often the diet or intake was not sufficient. And back in those days, the oil chemists had discovered free radicals in oils that caused the oils to degenerate. We now know that free radicals can cause butter to go rancid, and free radicals can cause a whole lot of things in biological systems. And free radicals are mopped up by antioxidants. Vitamin C has a very profound antioxidant action, and that's what attracted me to it. The mechanism of action was attractive, and the mechanism of action may have, if the mechanism was deficient in sick and dying patients, then it needed to be corrected. So I started getting informed consent from patients who were sick with influenza and other viral infections, including herpes simplex and herpes zoster, shingles, adult chicken pox, a whole range of serious conditions, including chronic fatigue syndrome and mononucleosis, and giving these patients small intravenous injections to start with. And it was quite remarkable that these small intravenous injections were not only very safe and didn't cause kidney damage and kidney stones, which was what we were told in medical school, but actually improved liver function and kidney function and immune function. So I thought, well, we keep on increasing the dose to a point where, okay, we've got to monitor the severity. And I had patients in hospitals that were doing this. Interestingly, Linus Pauling and Ewan Cameron in the United States at the Vale of Leven Hospital, well, it was in Scotland, but Pauling was in the States. they started giving, under supervision, 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C intravenously, and using it in cancer patients, and showing these cancer patients' well-being improved, their lifespan increased, and a very fortunate few cancers went into remission. So I started looking at all aspects of vitamin C deficiency in human health care, not only physical stuff, but in patients I had in hospital with psychiatric disorders as well. And remarkably, all patients, virtually 99.99% of patients took it very, very well and improved, and we saved lives with it. So that is probably a good example of how, when I see something, I look at the reality of it, the common sense use, the mechanisms of action, its safety, its efficacy, and of course the need rather than the want. And that happened with so many other nutrients and approaches. For example, rotation diets, elimination diets, use of vitamin B3 in cardiac disease, the use of magnesium in a whole range of disorders, muscle spasm, cardiac arrhythmias, multiple sclerosis. There are mechanisms of actions that we understand with these things, and these mechanisms of action, Mark, are far superior to any drug that's ever been made.
Yeah, and this is the thing, isn't it? Because you're bringing so much credibility to what you're doing, because you can talk into everything that you're doing, and it really is that difference between yourself and you've got obviously a paper you're working on. It's a care system for the world, wellness, and you've put a lot of work into it, and you kind of shared it to me as well. And I'm just going to bring up quickly, just before I move on to the next sort of question, we get into sort of that, but this is just a short version of you explain your concept behind a real wellness and healthcare system for the world, designed in Australia, or we face an horrific future. But that is a shorter version of what you've sent through to me, and you're still working on it. And there's about 54 pages of this blueprint, and so you've really detailed. So you're very, very strong on making sure that the work you're doing is credible, it can be relied on, and you're looking to talk to your to doctors, GPs that are probably a little bit skeptic of this integrative approach and so forth over the decades, because I suppose you would have faced over the decades a lot of pushback in regards to your approach to what you're doing, but you've detailed that really well, and I'll attach that obviously to the Substack, so people can have a look at that. You've given permission for me to do that, and people can really have a look at that that bit of a blueprint. So you're not going into this half-hearted. You've 5 decades of experience, plus you've got a real passion to look at change here in Australia, and I guess around the world. So I guess that brings me to talking a little bit about South Australia. I mean, what I'm going to be talking about, you can probably relate it to every state in the country, really. But here, we've got ongoing ramping and hospital overcrowding here in South Australia. From your experience, what are the root causes, and how do we shift from crisis management to prevention-focused care? I wonder if you had some thoughts on that.
Well, the paper I wrote, Mark, that one that you showed, 54 pages, is going to be expanded to 500 plus pages in the next few months, hopefully, when I get spare time to put these things together. But we are in a crisis at the moment, and our health system's failing us. We have the best doctors in the world, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of training. We have great hospitals. We've got great techniques in our ability to do things. And when it comes to acute interventive medicine care, it's great. But why are the hospitals ramping? Because people are not being made healthy. And people who are ending up in hospital, they should end up in hospital only from trauma and or a complication of a chronic disease. But too many people are ending up in hospital with the complications of chronic disease that could be prevented, and that could be prevented at primary care level. But the poor old GPs have been punished by government after government after government. The primary care physicians are also highly conflicted in terms of what they can do. Back in my days, in the early days, I could work as a physician, as a doctor, as a healer, as a teacher, and I could apply whatever therapy that I believed was in the best interest of the patient, providing the patient agreed to it. And nowadays, they have to make a diagnosis on the basis of tests and prescribe drugs according to protocols that are predetermined. And this is a major problem in our healthcare system because we are no longer professionals. Doctors are no longer professionals at the primary care level. They're basically robots for the big pharma industry. They are basically told by big pharma and the big pharma interests and influencers, the professors of medicine and their deputies, that this is what we do. So there is a massive amount of marketing and money going into manipulating my profession to do what big business wants them to do. And this, to me, is a crime. And we saw that during COVID. I mean, I could go into that in great detail. But if we're going to, I mean, I've managed crises in practice. I've managed crises in industry. And to prevent crises occurring, we have to look at what as the causes of previous crises and how we can overcome them. And to me, if we can take the entire population of Australia and say, this is what you need to do, or what we would like you to do, so that you have a happy, healthy, productive life and free of disease, or as much disease as possible, then these are some of the things that we need to do. And they're very, very simple. You know, basically increase the intake of fruit and vegetables, berries, nuts, seeds, whole grains for those who can tolerate whole grains. Keep red meat to a minimum, a couple of meals per week, plenty of fish, and legumes and so on. Look for the fresh, unprocessed foods as much as possible. Don't walk down the supermarket shelves and pick things off the shelves. Go to the areas of the supermarket or an open market where you can actually pick up the fresh fruit and vegetables, and make sure that you can identify whatever food is going into your mouth. Anything a tin, packet, can, or package of any sort has to be suspect. That's a start. Then there are some essential things to do in terms of health and well-being. Number one, what's going on up here? You know, it's an attitudinal thing. Number two, the new smoking disease is the sedentary disease. We're sitting down most of the time. And that is a major problem. Another major problem that we've got is obesity. And obesity is something that can be managed, providing we look at the type of food that we're consuming. And I won't go into details with it here, but we don't need Ozempic and these other drugs to lose weight. We can lose weight quite easily and simply, often by just changing the microbiome or the bacteria in our gut with a better diet and with some probiotics. The essential nutrient that all humans need is light, full spectrum sunlight, and vitamin D is a part of that. And the other supplement that I believe is important is vitamin C. So I think with regard to the evidence that's available, most diseases that we see, including acute infectious diseases like influenza, patients have got vitamin D deficiencies. And with vitamin D deficiency, lack of sunlight, and a lack of vitamin D in our diet, we end up with an increased risk of influenza and other infections, including COVID. But we also increase our risk of certain diseases such as prostate cancer, breast cancer, and possibly Alzheimer's disease, and probably multiple sclerosis and many, many others. So it's very, very simple. Take off as much clothing as possible, go for a walk for 30 to 40 minutes, at least 5 times a week. You don't need to go to the gym. You don't need to go pounding around a park somewhere. A brisk walk does your heart as much good as anything else. And the other thing, Mark, is social isolation. Isolationism is a major problem in the Western world. We have too many people who are lonely. It was one of the prime ministers in Britain who actually formed a department of loneliness, because loneliness also carries with it a risk of disease and early death. So my suggestion is with this new health, wellness and medical system. And when I was writing it, I was thinking about Australia, but it would be good for the globe, is to have primary care and tertiary care. Primary care being the doctor who not only at primary level treats an acute illness, but a doctor in the clinic who can actually give patients who've got chronic disease advice with regard to their diet, their exercise, their lifestyle, and so on. What I've just been talking about. And for those who do have a chronic illness like heart disease and diabetes, epilepsy, autoimmune disease, cancer, they go to another doctor in the centre who assesses them and determines whether or not they're at risk of getting complications in the early part of the future, in the next few months, or straight away. And instead of waiting until they get sick enough to go to hospital, we have a wellness hub where these patients can go to the wellness hub to prevent them going into hospital. And for patients being discharged from hospital, they go to the wellness hub to be made healthy and well again, optimizing their health so that they don't need to go back into hospital, but the GP, the general practitioner, and the integrative doctor can keep them well enough out of hospital and also from time to time use the wellness hub. And I think these wellness hubs will be places where people can volunteer to go and essentially say, oh, look, I don't want to see the doctor. I don't want to go to hospital. What do I do if I've got a risk of an inherited disease? I mean, to me, inherited disease, the risk of inherited diseases is something of a misnomer, because we can manipulate the expression of our genes. It's called epigenetics. We can manipulate the expression of our genes, our cancer genes, our diabetes genes, our heart disease genes, our dementia genes. We can manipulate them with what I've been talking about. Diet, exercise, meditation, prayer, whatever of these health approaches we can have. The other thing about human life is that we don't have to be happy all the time, but it's important to be content. And contentment is something that's missing, I think, in modern Western industrialized countries. We're always wanting more and more and more. And we shouldn't be wanting, I'll tell you another thing that I believe in, Mark, we shouldn't be wanting more and more and more. We should be giving away less and less and less to big business.
Yeah, and talking about big business, obviously the last 5 years have been a big eye-opening to me, and all the things that you're kind of talking about is obviously going against the grain, because we're obviously talking about affecting the business model and very high profits of the pharmaceutical industry. So obviously that's something that's come about, and this is not just me talking about. This is, you know, obviously getting well known now. And COVID kind of, a lot of people say they overcook their pudding or whatever it is with that, and a lot more people are realizing that that a lot of a lot of our doctors, or even health and well-being, is heavily controlled by pharmaceutical influences. So that's a huge thing. So look, it seems like, that we've lost sight in general of prevention and wellness in public health. It's really just been about this sickness model that kind of you talk into. So if you were to give the SA government today, if you were advising the SA government, what immediate practical steps would you, give them to ease pressure, beyond just adding more hospital beds? I mean, you talked into a bit, just like, what you've just talked into. Obviously, the listeners, the people watching will go, oh, great, I can kind of put those things in place, and we start looking at these things and have those conversations. But what would you recommend to, Premier Malinauskas and SA Health and Nicola Spurrier at the moment? What's your sort of quick advice?
Well, I think that the first lot of advice I'd give would be to the leaders, Mark, that South Australia, like the rest of Australia, needs to wake up. We need to wake up to the fact that we have the best resources in the world. We have huge resources here, and we waste them. We also give away our resources, or basically at a huge discount, and punish our people. And this is big business running government. And so I would say you've got to get big business out of government. I remember when I was much younger, I was a member of the Liberal Party, and I used to go to private functions, dinners, and sitting around the table. I won't say who the ministers were, but there was a prime minister, there could have been a health minister, an environmental minister, an industry minister. But I used to pay to go to these dinners, and I was the only one there who supported natural health care. The majority of people sitting around the table were the heads of beer, wine and spirits, peak bodies for British tobacco, the peak bodies for pathology, for hospitals, for doctors. They were basically there telling the ministers the important things and about where they should be going, what they should be doing. And I know what it's like in the hallowed halls of Parliament House. The lobbyists from big business are there constantly lobbying. And I think we need to ensure that the common sense people take back their democracy. The government is there for the people. People are not there for the government. And where our democracy is being eroded, and every now and again we see a hint of totalitarianism. And we saw that certainly in Victoria with the Daniel Andrews Labor government. We're seeing it also with the Jacinta Allen Labor government. And we see it with the Albanese government in Canberra, where decisions are being made that are totally wrong. We're being forced into accepting rules and regulations and laws that we should not really have, laws that are reducing our transparency of government, laws and rules that are taking away our freedoms, our freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, and so on. We're basically the mainstream fourth state, mainstream media, basically controlled by the centralists. And when I say big business, government by big business, for big business, is our current democracy. And if we substitute the word big business by the globalists, then we can see what's happening with the world. The globalists are determining nearly everything. And the globalists, of course, have been created by the World Economic Forum, and they see the general population of the world being too many. They see us being needed to be reduced in numbers, and they see us that we need to be controlled, tracked and traced. And that's what I'm fearing, not only at South Australian state level, but also, of course, the Australian sovereignty itself is being eroded away. So I think we need a different sort of politician, a very different sort of politician in both the state parliament as well as the federal parliament. That's the way I see it. Why waste our resources when, if you look at the resources that we export, the raw materials that we export, I think the majority of Australians could see their taxes reduced, not to zero, but almost zero. Our income taxes reduced to, say, about 10%. When you look at what's being given away and the wealth of this country. But I just feel that the tax system is wrong, and that we have become more and more like slaves to the system, and we shouldn't be. But this is what the globalists are wanting, to control the global population so that they can live an extremely sophisticated and privileged life. Honestly, our politicians many of our politicians are a part of that globalist system. Many of them are graduates, I guess, of the World Economic Forum, young leaders training, and we're part of a system that's not looking after us. To me, the government is our enemy. If government is big business, running government, then big business is our enemy. And we do need to change things back to I would suggest more localism in terms of everything we do. Maybe I'm ranting a little bit, Mark, but and this business about bringing everybody into cities so that we can all live happily ever after. They're building multi-storey buildings in very nice suburbs in Victoria and destroying the suburbs, basically to bring people all together into the cities, away from regional areas, so that we are better controlled, tracked and traced. And God forbid that I hope South Australia breaks away from the digital ID and the use of CBDC, central banking digital currencies, because if we lose those fights, if we all have to have a digital ID, we're going to be tracked and traced for the rest of our lives, and we'll end up with chips put into our hands, as they're doing in places like Sweden. Very frightening.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't hold out much hope for that here in South Australia, because we've sort of led the way, and I've done some podcasts and some exposés on that before. That, you know, we're sort of we designed an app that was used through COVID for tracking. We've got facial recognition technology we've been working on here for quite some time. They've been talking about smart city technologies since at least 2015 here in South Australia, which I've covered in an exposé. You know, we're obviously going into that. The climate thing's another thing. We're putting a bid in for COP31. The whole net zero, renewables, the whole lot. So South Australia, unfortunately, is deep into the throes of everything that you mentioned there. And one of the other things I raised recently, which is very concerning, and even Sarah Game here, to her credit, raised it. Obviously, got the international health regulations and the World Health Organization pandemic treaties, but the newest update to the Emergency Management Act, the amendments here in South Australia, pretty much put that on steroids, and already in thinking forward for the international health regulations and pandemic treaty. So look, South Australia, for those watching my podcast would understand, if someone happens to be obviously watching that isn't a normal regular viewer, you kind of need to do some research, quick step, because we are massively under tech in this state as well, as everywhere else in the country. So look, we've just got to do what we can to raise awareness, to talk about these topics with whatever means we have. Censorship is rife, because the things that we're talking about is labelled in a lot of cases as mis and disinformation. So our voices are strangled a lot, but we just got to keep pushing ahead, like you've been for the last sort of at least 5 decades, and you're continuing to do so. I really take my hat off to you, and you've given some obviously some options there already, because some of my questions were around, like, what would you suggest about principles in the public health strategies and so forth, and you've kind of already indicated into some of the treatments that you're talking about, the getting out there, getting some sunshine, getting exercise, vitamin D and C, and all those sorts of things. So these are very these are cost-effective interventions that our state could lack. But one of the things that worries me is that they're constantly on the media talking about taking this jab or taking this medication, but very rarely do you hear our Premier or even Chief Health Officers or the Minister for Health talking about constantly, getting on social media or media saying, this is what we recommend to get healthy. This is what we recommend to build your immune system. This is what they're quite happy to recommend everything else. Does that need to change? Does the messaging need to change, you think, in what they're sharing? I mean, I think I know what the answer is, but you obviously do, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I mean, the message does need to change. I mean, these people are either idiots or fools or ignorant. And unfortunately, we've grown up in a system that has been completely controlled by those who want to make money from us. And they're controlling everybody. They control our universities, they control our schools, they control the teaching, they control our research institutes. And just today or yesterday, I hear that the Labor Party in Canberra have passed the law for the CDC, the Centre for Disease Control. Now, we know that the Centers for Disease Control in the US have been completely corrupted. So who's paying for this CDC here? Who are the people running it? What sort of research is being done? Are they going to continue doing research on viruses that are being weaponized? We know now quite clearly that that the COVID virus was a weaponized virus. When I say weaponized, it was given gain of function, and that was done in China. And that virus was spread around the world as COVID-19. That was a man-made virus. We know that now. It's a fact of life. So we have to keep on educating people to start looking at the technology that's being developed and whether it's good or not good for us. And I do think that we have to use propaganda techniques, but honest propaganda, and propaganda that's full of fear, because being reasonable and being rational and being purely scientific and with good science, not the Dr. Fauci science where he makes it up as he went and he admitted to it, but real good science, whereby we can actually say, if you take vitamin D, you don't need any jabs. If you get sunlight, you don't need any jabs. And the countries in the world with the lowest mortality and morbidity from COVID-19 and the vaccines were the countries that didn't do the vaccines. And they encouraged people to go out and take vitamin D and or repurpose medicines. But in the West here, we made idiots of ourselves. We ignored the science that was available to us prior to COVID. So I think, and that was vitamin D preventing influenza. I mean, very powerful, far more powerful than any flu jabs. So I think we have to say, well, if we're going to have a digital ID and be identified and tracked and traced, then we will, if the powers that be have our data and our face, and they know that we have, for example, as a diabetic, gone and bought an extra couple of cans of Coke from the supermarket, that purchase is registered and recognised straight away by the system that will come into force. And that person who's diabetic, who bought 2 extra cans of Coke and has a high blood sugar level, will be told to go to the doctor, forced to go to the doctor. Or they will lose social credit points, which are the points in China that will come here. You lose the social credit points, then you won't be able to use any money. So you won't be able to use a taxi or Uber to get to the doctor until such time as you end up, and they'll be monitoring your blood sugar level, because that's what will happen. You'll have one of these pads or chips that is put into your arm as a diabetic, which exists now. It goes to your doctor. It'll go up to the cloud, and the system will take the digital ID system. Will say basically your blood sugar has gone sky high. You're in diabetic ketoacidosis. It's now time for us to send an ambulance to pick you up. We'll pick you up by ambulance and we'll take you. We go into intensive care, and they'll give you protocols in intensive care that may kill you, may save your life, but you have no say whatsoever, no informed consent, no bodily autonomy whatsoever. That is what's happening in other parts of the world, and that's what will happen here if we adopt the digital ID. You know, I could go on other stories about, you know, a little old lady who's done something wrong, social credit points taken off. She may have dropped something in the street or done something wrong, went through a caution light when she was driving. And they say, okay, social credit's down. Your bank account's frozen until you, or we'll take money out of your bank account to pay for the fine. Then you haven't got enough money to pay for your heating. So in the winter, you end up getting cold. And when you get cold, you're at risk of mortality and morbidity. This will happen because we'll be tracked and traced, everything we do.
Yeah, and the technology is well truly advanced, and you know, obviously the big push from others, from big players towards central bank digital currencies. This is all coming from, you know, very, very powerful players pushing it onto societies. It's not so much a call from us people on the ground saying we want this technology, we want it, you know, we want to, you know, a lot of people that I know, the most people I speak to, they say we want to keep cash, you know, and stay away from that sort of stuff. And but it's it's all linked. The technology is there, and we know people like Elon Musk and others, trillionaires, billionaires, and bigger corporations, have got the technology and the means. Have been talking about this sort of stuff. People like Yuval Noah Harari is talking about, communicating with the cloud and all those sorts of things. So it's not far fetched. This is open conversations by these people's plans, and these people that behind that have been talking about this for near on a century too, I believe. So, it's just that more people are starting to become aware, and this is why they're looking to, looking at ways they can censor information even further. So, I guess, Ian, looking back at, what do you think the biggest lessons then are that we should have learned from the COVID-19 response? So, particularly around medical freedom and open scientific debate. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, the biggest lesson for me was the resistance of all of the authorities. I mean, I knew Scott Morrison and Greg Hunt. I wrote letters to them, many letters, pleading with them to introduce a CD zinc campaign, which would have got us out of COVID within 6 to 8 weeks. It would have just been a bad flu-like illness for those who got it, but for the majority of people, they wouldn't have even suffered any symptoms at all. We have to look after the elderly, of course. This was the lesson that our government doesn't listen to common sense and good science. It listens to big business, and that's what it did. It listened to the big business coming from the controllers in the United States, the Faucis of the world, and big pharma, and of course Fauci was in the pocket of big pharma. The lesson is for us to more diversity, but also divorce ourselves from big pharma when it comes to the healthcare system. And if we keep going along the way we are, then we're going to become sicker and sicker. And the more jabs we get, the more our immune system is going to be weakened, not strengthened. The more we eat fast food, junk food, and processed foods, the sicker and fatter we're going to get. And humanity is going to get worse and worse and worse. I don't know if it's going to be over decades or generations, but there will be a point in time when, for most people, life will not be worth living. With the technologies that are being evolved, that when babies are born, they're not just going to be given injections of vaccines and vitamin K, but their whole genome will be assessed, and they will be basically given, there will be a chip inserted into them, and that chip will actually control many of their bodily functions. It will also feed back information to the big data bank, the Humanity Data Bank, about their progress in life, and they will be forced to take either injections or drugs at particular stages of life, maybe every 3 months or every 6 months. This is their blueprint. It's not anything I'm making up. It's basically what technology is being designed to do. And so humans will no longer be humans as we know them. There will be no compassion. The compassion in healthcare is disappearing. Just wait and see what happens when we are basically treated as numbers and not humans with a name. Because, people with numbers are people who've been, I don't have to tell you, your listeners know when people are numbered, what happens. And that is chilling, absolutely chilling. And I am not a negative person. I have to be positive. But I do see it getting worse and worse and worse until such time as there is a growing number of humans left in the population, real humans who still think and have feelings and behave like humans and not like sheep and lining up for tests and injections, and say enough is enough. And when that occurs, Mark, is up to God and nature. And if you don't believe in God, then you've got to believe in nature. And if you don't believe in either, you have no philosophy of life, and you don't have any right to be on this planet. You have to, as a human, have we are born with a spirit. We are God's children. We've been created by nature. We have to have a philosophy in life. And to me, that philosophy has to be positive, and one that is for all. And the basis of it is love for your neighbour, love for everybody, and peace. And without a spiritual dimension to your individuality, without the compassion for others and love for yourself, then there are no values. And I've seen, I'm sure you've seen, values that have been created by Judeo-Christian civilization are melting away. And I have to say that our mainstream media is a major contributor to the demise of our civilization as we knew it. Many of us will delude ourselves and believe it's still there, but I think it's got to get worse before it gets better. Unfortunately.
Yeah, very proper. I agree, and the attack on the Judeo-Christian values and ethos and so forth, and things that have built this great nation and others, is under attack from many different fronts, and the undermining of the family, and just so many aspects of our life. So, and it is a really good segue to something that I was just going to show a really quick clip and kind of then follow it up, but it kind of talks into this kind of almost this humanity that you were just talking about, this this love of neighbour and that. But I'll just quickly show you this, and you might have seen it. It did a bit of a run around a while.
I personally would not want anyone unvaccinated coming to my Christmas party, and that's probably about where it would sit for me.
Yeah. So that's obviously Chief Health Officer Nicola Spiro, who's still in power, obviously here in South Australia over different obviously leaderships. One was under the Liberal Party with Marshall now, and under Peter Malinauskas. But so many South Australians, and I guess all around the country. I mean, you're from Victoria, where it was, we seem like it was one of the worst states almost in the world through COVID. But so many people, still feel they were treated unfairly, they were othered for their, personal medical choices. How do we really begin to heal that divide and rebuild trust in medicine and government? I mean, how do we do that? I mean, you just said that things have probably got to get a lot worse before they get better. But what's your message to our viewers here and anybody else that might end up seeing this?
I think the message to the viewers is to be as diplomatic and as peaceful in terms of your communication with your friends and family, and very gently talk about future healthcare and wellness, and that nature has the answers, and that nature is not there to hurt. Nature always wins over everything else. And when it comes to future infectious diseases, have a think about whether you want to be tested and jabbed, or whether you'd prefer to have a vitamin D test and take some vitamin D and some repurposed medicines, which we know work in most viral infections. That I think if we can provide people with information, that's important. Education is important. And my approach is basically to set examples for people. If we can set examples and talk about the importance of our constitution, the importance also of our democracy. And our democracy is that we have rights. We have the right to try, different therapies. We have the right to refuse a therapy. We should receive voluntary, full, free, informed consent with everything that we do. It's important also to ask the doctor, what are they injecting? What's in the drug that I'm taking? And have a look at the breakdown and see whether or not it's got ingredients that you approve of, or there's plenty of information and ability on the internet now to find out the side effects of the drugs and the vaccines, and whether or not you're ready to risk it or ready to force your children to take these substances. Because Big Pharma is not there for the patient. Big Pharma is there for the profit. And the doctor is basically an agent now of Big Pharma, because the doctors during COVID were forced themselves to take the vaccines. They were forced to give the vaccines, and they were forced to keep their mouths shut about the side effects and the adverse reactions and the death and the risk of death and disease from the COVID vaccines, which were not true vaccines. They were, as you know, they were genetic preparations made of messenger RNA, which is gene therapy. I think we just need to keep doing what we're doing. I'm doing what I'm doing, Mark, and trying to share information as much as possible. But while we've got a majority of the population who still believe that the doctor's always right, that the government knows best for us, and that their chief health officer and chief medical officers are experts, they're not. That woman is not an expert in healthcare. She's done no healthcare training whatsoever. She's been trained in medicine, and medicine is not healthcare. Very few doctors graduate with any idea of how to make a person healthy. And I say to most of my doctor friends, I would not let you look after my pigs and poultry. They get sick and die. It's true. They don't. I mean, eat the standard Australian diet. What's the standard Australian diet? Tell me. Mostly, a lot of it's takeaway now. A lot of it's fast food. A lot of it's processed foods. So that woman, to me, unfortunately, she's ignorant. She's badly trained. She's a mouthpiece for the government. She's a mouthpiece for Big Pharma. I have complete contempt for the likes of her. I feel sorry for her. If she came to me, I would be kind, diplomatic, and give her all of the love that I'd give any other human being. But until she's prepared to open her mind, it's like a parachute. It doesn't work unless it's opened. And I believe that everybody has an ounce of good in them. And she may think that telling people to avoid the flying football, just in case you'll get COVID, is a good thing. But that's a complete furphy. And she's still very young and doesn't have enough experience to be in the position she's in. But that's the way that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And so, I mean, clearly there's still a lot of healing. I know I'm sort of in contact in the community here in South Australia with a lot of, I mean, I'm talking tens of thousands, if not, over 100,000 of South Australians that are still feeling the pain of the othering during that period of time. And so, I mean, and you would have faced this firsthand, obviously, over the decades that you've been working in your field, like in integrative medicine. So, do you believe it's one of the reasons that mainstream policy for integrative medicine hasn't been adopted because of the pushback from big pharma and big corporations?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned at the beginning, in the late 1970s, I formed the Australasian College of Nutritional Medicine, which became the Australasian College of Nutritional and Environmental Medicine. And then integrative medicine. And we've had a battle with mainstream medicine ever since. But there are a lot more doctors coming on board looking at integrative medicine and these natural modalities than there have ever been in the past since COVID. So that's one good thing that's come out of it, Mark. There are more doctors looking at this, and more patients are looking for alternative solutions because they've been made sick by the injections and drugs that they've been put on, and they're not getting any better. So they're looking at natural ways of treating themselves, and the nutrients are so important. The basic building blocks, and it's rewarding to see this happening. It's not happening fast enough for me. So I've lost track of where we're going with this.
Yeah, no, that's all right. No, it was just in regards to the othering. We were talking about the othering and policies and the integrative medicine being stifled by Big Pharma. Yep.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've tried through the AMA, the Australian Medical Association. I failed. I tried with the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners, and I failed, or they failed us. I've tried through the government. I've tried through the regulators, various departments, and I found that the only way of doing it was basically, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And that's why I formed the College of Nutritional Medicine. And it's now been going for 45, 46 years. It's awarding fellowships to doctors and other healthcare professionals. It's growing, and I only hope it continues to grow and thrive, because it's the major educational organ for healthcare practitioners in this country in terms of natural healthcare, integrative healthcare. And of course, we've got another organisation in Melbourne called National Institute of Integrative Medicine, where the research is being done. And we struggle for research funding, but it comes in from people who are interested in donating to the research. So it's there is a massive pushback, because the drug companies, the big pharma, is probably one of the most powerful lobby groups in the world. I guess the energy groups are as well, but big pharma, they've got the lobbyists in Canberra constantly pushing for money to go into more drugs, when most of the medications are not necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the key reason, one of the reasons. And I mean, I never ever thought that I'd look to put my hat in the ring to get into politics, to be honest with you, Ian. It's one of the last things I thought I'd ever want to do. But I obviously, I feel that the current crop of politicians, especially in the major parties, are very heavily influenced by global agendas. And I think South Australians deserve better than people being influenced by, as you mentioned, lobby groups and major corporations and so forth. And so obviously I'm clearly having this conversation with you, so the listeners kind of obviously know where I stand on things. And clearly your message is that we do need to look at politicians, or people getting into politics that are going to go against the grain and possibly take those attacks and take those hits for anything to really change, because you're doing your bit with educating in regards to the health and wellness space. You've written that. We're working on elaborating further on that document that we showed earlier, which I'll share. So you've already put a lot of thought into how things could be done a lot better in this nation. We just need the right people to bring this forward. And this also includes our viewers, the people that are listening. I know that probably people watching my podcast have seen you on others' podcasts as well, so they are probably driven towards listening to what you have to say and looking at ways to improve their life. But if we're looking at South Australians that are looking disillusioned about the whole health system, is really just follow the things that you're working on, the world of wellness and other things you're involved with. You're obviously involved with the Airline Council of Australia. But if every listener sort of watching now just made one small change tomorrow to improve their health, would it be what you talked about earlier, is look at their vitamin C? I mean, getting blood tests, look at vitamin C and D. I mean, are these just things that you can kind of start doing without any real risk? Even if you haven't had a blood test, is maybe look at, doing those, or I mean, obviously you'd probably recommend getting those levels checked. We're talking about looking at, doctors that, them at least approaching their doctor for some sort of those solutions and have those conversations? What's the sort of thing that you'd sort of recommend, sort of as we're kind of getting ready to move on, because you've been generous with your time? What would you recommend to South Australians in that regard?
Mark, my recommendations would be sit down and have a think and talk with your family about your lifestyle, and get everybody on board to say, look, we're going to get healthier and fitter, and this is what we're going to do. And I recommend, first of all, fresh, unprocessed foods. Eliminate sugar from your diet and white flour products. No sugar, white flour products, out of the diet completely. Fresh, unprocessed foods, and be able to identify your foods. Increase your intake of fruit and vegetables so that you're taking a total of 7 to 9 per day of fruit and vegetables. Not, don't have to overdo the amount, but increase your intake of healthy nuts like Brazil nuts, walnuts, pecans. Cashews and peanuts are not the healthiest of nuts. Berries, seeds in your diet, and drink plenty of water. And if you've got gut problems, look at a probiotic. If you don't have gut problems, well, if you've got gut or no gut problems, I recommend some vitamin C, and to learn about how much vitamin C you need and how much vitamin D and sunlight you need. They are very simple things for everybody to do. For those who can go to the gym, that's fine. For those who only want to go for a walk, then do so many steps. I put up a Substack on longevity some time ago. I'll see if I can find it again and provide it to you, Mark. It was a talk I did in Prague on longevity and healthy eating and healthy lifestyles. Make sure you take a bit of time out for yourself every day, say 20 minutes to pray or to meditate, or even just to sit down and hum, which is a very good pastime if you want to. If you hum, the brain vibrates and cleans itself out. I'm doing another paper on that pretty soon. So these are simple steps, and do it bit by bit. Don't try to do it all at once, because you'll probably give up. It's too much to do. But break some old habits one by one, and say, well, this week I'm going to take some extra vitamin C. Next week I'm going to get some extra sunlight. I'm going to not eat any sugary things or white flour products. I'm going to have whole grains, whole grain rice, beans, nuts, seeds, and so forth. And what I mentioned earlier about the diet. But it's most important to increase your vegetables, leafy, stem and root vegetables, and say 2 or 3 pieces of fruit per day as well, or berries. And have a treat every now and again. But treat it as a treat, not as a right or a privilege or an everyday thing. And I think, there are more spices in your diet. Spices like turmeric and garlic and ginger. They add great variety to your diet, and all of them have got therapeutic properties, anti-cancer properties, anti-inflammatory properties. They have 3 wonderful spices that are easily obtainable and easy to cook with. So
excellent.
Very simple, but straightforward.
Yeah, and you mentioned that article in your Substack. So look, if people want to know, obviously want to know more, they follow you on your Substack, Ian Brightope Substack there, where you've got all your articles, everything you've done. And a lot of them, I get them in my mailbox. They're very comprehensive, well put together. You must spend a lot of time on that. I mean, obviously you've got your 50 odd years of experience to put those things together. So, but highly recommend people to at least follow along and get some insights about where you're at. Obviously, the world of wellness, and people can obviously, if they need to reach out with you, out to you, they can do that. And we mentioned about things being a bit darker just as we wind up. You mentioned things about probably getting a bit darker, but what actually gives you hope for the future for health in Australia? What roles can our listeners play? Because I know we want to be a bit uplifting and give people hope. So what gives you hope?
Well, what gives me hope is the challenge we've got. What gives me hope is the number of people who are coming across to our natural health care the number of people who are saying no to tobacco, no to alcohol, the number of people who are believing in some sort of a philosophy in life. I think there's a huge growth in natural health care as well. That really it gives me a great degree of hope, because, Mark, these globalists and the politicians and the people that I'm critical of now, they will either themselves want our help or help of our nature one of these days, or their children or their grandchildren will need it, because medicine doesn't have all of the answers. We have far more answers than medicine has. The biggest answer that we've got is to get well and stay well, and live a healthy and happy lifestyle, and be creative. I mean, what I really enjoy is getting up every day, going from a walk, catching up with some friends down at the coffee shop. You can't beat that. You can't beat family, and you can't beat the love of everything. So you just get some love into your system, and I mean, you can do that in many ways, but it's so important at the end of all of this. No matter how bad things will get, and for some people in this world, things are very, very, very bad. I mean, look at Gaza, look at the Ukraine, and look at other parts of the world. We are so much better off than them. But we don't want to continue as humanity being controlled and being forced to either go to war, or being forced to pay high taxes, or being forced to take medications that are going to be of great harm to us, and certainly injections. So hope for the future is one of the things that I've always had. When patients used to come to see me and they say, "You're Dr. Brighthope," and I say, "Yes," and I'd say, "Well, I'm feeling better already."
Well, I guess that's a testament to your nature, and probably a good point to close on as well. So, look, Professor Brighthope, thank you for your wisdom and your lifelong dedication to helping people live healthier, freer lives. It's been an absolute privilege to have you on my podcast today, and I really do appreciate the time that you give to everybody, to many people. You've been on many podcasts, you've talked into many topics, and there's so much to talk about. You could be quite easily, living your life and doing other things, but you're dedicating more of your time to give back to people. So be following closely your continued work, and I encourage South Australian and others to do the same. So thank you so much again for the time that you've given me today.
Thanks very much, Mark, and best of luck with your endeavours at the political level. I'll certainly be following you, and keep in touch, please. And thank you for the invitation to speak with you today, and your friends.
Yeah, no worries at all. I'll definitely, I think I'm definitely pushing a big boulder up the hill, but life's full of challenges, and we've just got to try and keep pushing it. Yeah, that's exactly right. Good on you, Ian. All the best. Have a great one.
Thanks, Mark. You too. Take care.
There you go. That was Professor Ian Brightope, and as I said, you can follow Professor Brighthope on his Substack, as well as his other platforms. But I'll also be sharing links to his articles that he's put together, the blueprint, which he's still working on, and as always, that I'll be finishing with a song, or Christian blues, before I finish off. And I wish everybody a great evening. And as always, if you want to see more, you want to support independent media, hit that like and subscribe button. We definitely need this. We're supporter funded, and it can only exist through your help. So if you'd like to buy me a coffee, by all means do that. But if nothing else, please like and subscribe, and keep a lookout for further videos. All right, good on you. Thank you all for joining today.
A man went Walking through a field when something holy was revealed, a treasure buried deep below that set his heart and soul aglow. He hid it back with trembling hand, then sold his house, his goods, his land. He gave up all to own that ground where heaven's glory had been found. There's a treasure worth it all, more than riches, great or small. When Jesus calls, don't hesitate. Sell everything, step through the gate. Seen, no ear had heard the joy he found beneath that dirt. But those who seek with faithful heart will find the pearl set far apart. May mock the price we pay, but grace can't wait, don't miss the day. For in that field lies life divine, and peace this world could never find.